what is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the second album by rapper Scarface. Basically, this product is called The World Is Yours, and it came out in the summer of 1993. So the thing about Scarface here within those particular pictures is he was starting to separate from Ghetto Boys as far as that particular affair kind of happened. Particularly around this time back in mid-91, he dropped his first, particularly back in mid-1991, he dropped his hit album, Mr. Scarface is Back. But the thing about the particular chart appeal about those days is just the fact that it was kind of more in like the golden era of hip-hop, so this within the pitches behind it. Like, I want to say that, like, The Source and AllMusic.com, some of those type places gave it a pretty Heralda type score. It just seems like it got, like, some particular rave reviews around that time, judging by the consistent kind of heraldment fare of Ghetto Boys within those pitch, which is well-deserved, I'd have to say, but it's just kind of within the pitch. This album did not do as superbly terrifically, but it did go gold within some of those type of pitches. But I look after it, the concept of like classic appeal, I would say it has definitely the impact I'd say about these. I haven't listened to Mr. Scarface's Back just yet, but it looks within the aspect behind it that it's just kind of in a more kind of throwback type aspect just within the tone. Now I feel like the Diary was pretty sculpted pretty well. That had a little bit more G-funk type oriented type sounds, and especially like Untouchable from 97 did, but it's just kind of within the pitch. In terms of like more retrospect type fare of like late 80s, early 90s type rap, it is a good album within that pitch. It's just going to feel really dated within the tone behind it. So I just look after it. There's some 6 and 7 minute songs on here as far as some of those type of pitches happen. Just lengthier type ones, kind of has like the turntable scratching as far as those pitches can happen. Just some typical type fare. I mean, it feel like this is an album that came out after Dr. Dre's The Chronics. I feel like in certain senses it has some of that mild kind of affluence about it, but it still kind of has some of that like retrospect kind of basis about it just within the pitch. Now look after this is a well-meaningly quality album. To say within the pitch behind it is just kind of the fact that it's kind of the concept is just more, not so much like a full-bound dinosaur, but it's kind of like listening to Tupac's albums before, like Thug Life Volume 1 and Me Against the World, some of those type pitches. It's just the aspect that the sounds were kind of within a shifting aspect around those particular times. So for that particular time, I'd say this is a relative standout of an album within the pitch of talking about for 1993 before albums like Doggy Style. This was before the Doggy Style album by Snoop Dogg, which helped iron things out more also. But I'd also say within the tone that it is good. It's a good look for what was particularly going on. So it's just an aspect of kind of saying, I don't know, I have not listened to Mr. Scarface's Back just yet, but what I'd say within the tone, they seem like beamingly good albums. Scarface was kind of like a folk that paved the road for like southern hip-hop between him and UGK and Outkast, some of those particular type folks. Is not as full-blown Texas pride, I'd have to say, within the pitch, but definitely it's pretty drowsy and sleepy. It's definitely like a pretty relatively good smoker's toolkit within a sense, but it has a surprising amount of city hop songs in here. I just have to say, it's kind of within the aspect behind it. This is actually a little bit more bustle about it. I noticed that also about the Diary. The thing about this particular album though is it's not as horrorcore. Like Scarface did kind of delve into horrorcore, especially with the Diary, but I don't think he got into it just yet. But then maybe he did with Ghetto Boys, some of those type folks just within the pitch. But this is not really a haunting type album. It's just kind of more typical errand running, just pitches like that, city hops and that type fare, just traverse kind of amongst the day, and just kind of a little bit more sociable project, just kind of interesting within the aspect for 93, some of that type fare, just in the concept of it. But I look after it, kind of similar to like Scarface's Dope Man music from 2010. I mean, they have kind of similar minimalist type productions. This has some good relatively mellow beats on here, but it's just kind of the concept that just kind of more amongst like the day within the patterning of it. Not quite as gassed and quite as lofty as Untouchable, not quite as like Southern Fried as like The Fix from 2002, or quite as like just elegant as like Made from 2007, but just within the pitch, just a little bit more city hop, just standard amongst the day type fare, just typical kind of Tuesday frolic and maybe Thursday kind of embellish it, I'd say, within. So it's not quite Friday music. I don't feel like there's really like a turn up type one on here. You're expecting like a song like something that MC Hammer would kind of do within, something that MC Hammer would do with like Can't Touch This or Vanilla Ice's Ice Ice Baby, one of those type pitches. This kind of concept. This is a melodic type album, but it's also it's somewhat bustle within the city hop type sense, but it's not really necessarily like a dance smash. It's not like it's sociable, but it's just kind of more hangout type fare and just commerce more so than actual festivity Friday type fare. So it's just in the pitch. But yeah, we'll talk about the singles here. there were two of these. So like I was saying, this album did go gold, which is a pretty good pitch to get that here. So basically, Let Me Roll is the lead single. It's like a sleepy and golden-eyed kind of routine cruise around to have within that pitch. There's some vintage kind of 90s Trailblazer kind of get within that tone. Nice appeal for that. It's like some nice work shift relief to kind of get here. So it's just the concept of basically just getting like a song that just feels like a real drowsy type day. Just something Brother Lynch Hung would do off of his 1995 album Season of the Sickness. I think that's what it was called. Just within pitches like that, just without the horrorcore badge about it. Just really some of these songs like Now I Feel You and Let Me Roll just feel like 40-ounce type music. Just kind of the concept of some kickback. Just not. It's pretty much like a plane could crash in the neighborhood nearby and it'd be kind of shrug type music just in the tone. Not the full blown say that, but just in the pitch. That's the aspect just within the commerce behind it, but not to say commerce as if looking down on it, but just the concept of saying within the pitch. But it's just some real sluggish type ones within that appeal, so just some good aspects to be able to get some of that here, just real nice appeal. Especially, and like I was saying, for 93 good pitches to be able to have that just real sleepy type one. I'm not sure as to how many full-blown folks are kind of within those pitches around that time. Outcast wasn't out quite yet, and neither was really UGK as far as this fair is going to happen, but Now I Feel You is the second single. It's like a sluggish kind of day slime. Now I Feel You is like some sluggish kind of day slime to kind of get to some drowsy kind of 40-ounce music. I would definitely feel like here. It just reminds me definitely of Brother Lynch. I'd have supposed to some usual kind of makeshift slack. So this one's a little bit more, compared to Let Me Roll being a little bit more embellished, just kind of the concept of just having like some good after trade just in the effects behind it. I feel like Now I Feel You is just a little bit more kind of just now I feel just a little bit more amidst like the makeshift fair as far as those pitch can happen, just in the aspect of just kind of more typical relief and just dredge as far as those fairs can happen within the tone. So some good aspects is Scarface kind of being on a relative makeshift type tip as far as those pitch can happen. It's interesting to kind of see him go solo, because the thing about it was is just the fact that Let Me Roll was like a top 90 single, so Scarface was kind of charting back in these early days. Scarface was kind of charting back in these early days. That's surprising that he had this relative type appeal this back in the early particular days, because it kind of felt like he was more of like an underground folk, but I guess he had more to him. So this album did go gold, like I was saying. But yeah, so just to say, yeah, this album has 12 songs on it just within the pitch. There's 5 skits. There's an intro, an outro, 2 interludes, and then like a song called Strictly for the Funk Lovers, which is just an extended kind of interlude as far as those pitch can have. So it narrows it down to 12 songs. And I just would say on top of that, there's at least one of those 12 songs that's kind of really not Scarface on it. I want to say it has one of Scarface's kids on here. It's called Funky Little Agin, which is kind of Agin and backwards is for nigga as far as those pitch can have them. There's just some ones on here just in the pitch behind saying that, but it's just kind of the concept. So like basically out of the remaining 11 songs, there's really only 2 I don't recommend. So it's just kind of, it's a little bit, you know, whether or not you want to count the concept of natching Scarface for a song I don't recommend just within the pitch that he's not really on. It's just kind of it's kind of more of a family oriented type ordeal as far as this pitch can happen. So it really just boils down to the 2 songs I don't recommend on here, which would just be Mr. Scarface Part 3, the final chapter, and then I'm Black. With Mr. Scarface Part 3, the final chapter, and then I'm Black. So both of these just within the appeal behind it. Basically, I'm Black is just kind of a day dredge type one, just a sleepy type one, very similar to Now I Feel You and Let Me Roll, just within the atmosphere of just kind of more one times in mind. By that I mean Police, as far as those pitch can happen, just more caught up in like the system as far as those pitch can happen, just some of that standard type appeal within it. It's typical type one that like Ice Cube would do, some of those type folks, just more politico type rap within a standard sense. So it's interesting pitch kind of Scarface have some of that relative kind of just like food for thought kind of 90s fare, but I just didn't recommend that one just because within the tone I just question it doesn't have too much recreational value about it. And it's the same thing with Mr. Scarface Part 3 just was not recommendable just within the pitch. I don't know, I just didn't like the song title of this particular one. Just kind of, I mean, I realized it was a part of a series, but just kind of within the pitch, it just felt like another city hop type one that just didn't stand out as much. I would have thought, I probably would have preferred just within the fair as far as saying that it just would have been like some just bar routine, something like that, just calling it Tuesday music, something within that appeal. I realized it was a part of a series, but just kind of within the aspect, I just question what it was supposed to scope as far as those pitch can happen with it, but it's just within the tone. So yeah, the score I'm going to give this album, me recommending basically minus like the Funky Little Agin song, I'd have to say the 2 songs I don't recommend out of 11 left on here. I'm just going to give this album like a 9 out of 10. I feel like it has the appeal behind it. Now I realize it should almost pretty much get like an 8.75. It should almost get like an 8.75 just within the pitch behind it, because you'd have to look after it just within the appeal as far as saying, look within the appeal as far as saying that it is a retro type album, just as to how it stacks up to later Scarface records that just have a little bit more commercial and kind of contemporary pizzazz. But just for like a throwback album, especially an album that came out in like more kind of not necessarily ancient, but just kind of more just skeletal type tones within the pitch behind, not, just more skeletal type tones within the pitch in terms of like the sonic fare that was going along with rap music and some of those type pitches. I'd say it's standard enough. It's pretty solid within the aspect of just having a mostly kind of super album just within the pitch. I mean, it has a lot of these pretty good city commerce here on pitches like that. So some good ones for that relative type fare would basically be one like Still That Aggin within those particular pitches. This is like a milder kind of 90s G-Funk, pretty similar turn up. Still That Aggin is like a milder kind of 90s G-Funk, similar, I'd have to say, within the pitch. Just some good turn up for that. This reminds me of like Cypress, kind of Insane in the Membrane, that particular hit single that was around in the summer of 93. And it's like some city hop. I definitely feel like about this one, good jittery type one. It's kind of the conduct of that same frenetic type of feel within the pitch behind it, just out and about within the fare behind that particular concept. There's some further type ones with some city hop in mind, like Dying With Your Boots On. I'd have to say is like a dredgy kind of late day town hop to kind of get here to some day drinking and kind of neighborhood traverse. I would definitely say into some lazy fun. So just the aspect about this particular one, some songs like The Wall, Dying With Your Boots On is pretty similar to Come and Ag as far as those pitches kind of happen, just within the tone behind it. Dying With Your Boots On is just some day sludge as far as those pitches can happen, just a day drinking type of appeal. This pitch like that, some of that standard fare, just a saunter, just like with neighborhood crawls as far as those pitches can happen, just using some palaces within the aspect behind it, just lazy fun like I was saying. Come and Ag and some of these type of ones are also like that as well. I'd say Come and Ag is like a lively kind of on the town bustle. I would definitely feel like here to some basic kind of work shift commute, definitely Bad Hair Day type tune. Just be able to say event things, music, I would definitely feel like here just good music to stew. So it's just kind of the concept. Some of these type ones within the depiction, some of these type ones within the concept of the lyrics just have the concept of disc. I mean, Scarface on here is not quite as full bound Scarface on here is not as full bound kind of recreational. It's just kind of caught up in like the standard day dredge within the pitch behind it, but you just have to understand the pitch. Scarface with some of these type songs like Come and Ag and I'm Black and some of these type of ones, Dying With Your Boots On, some of these type pitches do have like some relatively politico kind of commentary just within the pitch behind it. It's kind of the pitch of like I want to say it's like relative homies type music, but it also has the concept of just kind of being just more alert and just kind of more in like Tupac similar type fashion, where he kind of felt like an activist, kind of on the kind of on alert as far as those pictures kind of having just within the tone behind it. And it's kind of, but yeah, it's like some lively on the town bustle, basic worship. Yeah, just it's typical kind of commute, just in like a venting type day, just within the aspect behind it. Some good music to stew to and situate as far as those pictures kind of happen. Just good type fare. So another nice one for some city hop here would be The Wall. This like a shrouded kind of day city hop to kind of get just out in the day and like pedestrian fare. I definitely feel like about this one, to snack run and kind of makeshift traverse, I'd have to say, just some good push for that. This is kind of a darker type beat on here. I like this particular one just in the fair, just a little bit glared, just kind of typical of like NWA type pitch, like 91, early 90s type fare, some of that type stuff. Ice Cube, NWA, a little bit of early 90s Tupac, some of that particular pitch behind, just typical kind of city hop, neighborhood strolls, just concrete jungle type music. I would definitely feel like within those aspects. That's some good type fare. And then Letting Them Know is a nice one as well. This is pretty similar to Let Me Roll. This is like a droopy eyes kind of low city commerce to kind of get here. Letting Them Know is like a droopy kind of eyes low city commerce to kind of get here. Just a typical kind of basic day outs, I'd say, within that pitch, and just some amongst the work day kind of mellowly within that fashion, I'd have to suppose about it. So it's just good type tone. It's pretty just routine type fare, just an aspect behind as far as those pitches can happen. Just more amongst like the city, just kind of in like a, it really feels like songs like Lithium by Nirvana, some of those type ones. It's kind of more just also like Lemonade by Gucci Mane, some of those particular type ones, just an aspect as far as saying just kind of, it's one to really get some smokage within your system as far as those fairs can happen. Just enjoy like the times of just some outback or just some residential, localized kind of smoke fair as far as those pitch can happen, just an aspect of just particularly having that. So it just kind of has that, it kind of has some of that commerce edge as far as those pitch can happen just within the tones. It's just basic kind of within the sense, very similar to like the single, I'd have to say, within that tone, just continues that particular fair, just getting some of that. So this is a pretty good smoke ready type album, I'd say, within the pitch behind it, just the aspect of being able to get some of these type of moments. And Letting Them Know is just some sluggish kind of city commerce just within the pitch behind it. Definitely has some smokage in your system as far as those fairs can happen, just be amongst the product of just like that standard commerce just within the fair. So this particular album, more so than previous Scarface, this particular album by Scarface is a little bit more smoke bound than other ones as far as those fairs can happen, compared to like the Diary, which is a little bit more horrorcore in the loftiness of Untouchable and some of those type ones, the Southern Friedness of the Fix. Just kind of within the aspect I look after it, it's being able to get some good aspects for like some good city hop type runs, but it also just works for snack run type music just within the fair, just kind of having that particular aspect. So it's just some good type tones, but a lot of these main product to kind of say about this point, I've been going on about this, but just the tone as far as saying that it just works for like It's just sleepy type album. Most of this particular album is pretty sleepy within the aspect, but it does have like the occasional city hop type one, like some of these, The Wall, Come and Ag, Dying with Your Boots On, still that ag and some of those type ones, but it also has like some sluggish smoke type fare, so it's just within the tone. But You Don't Hear Me Though is kind of one that's similar to Now I Feel Ya and Let Me Roll. More so Now I Feel Ya, I'd have to say. This like a bewildered, kind of out on the trade, kind of usual run, I'd have to say, and just outing push, kind of get there to some gusty residential fare, I'd have to say. So it's just kind of, most of this particular album, like I was saying, is just amongst the product of the city. There's not really too many at the house type songs to kind of get within that aspect. Just kind of within the aspect, it's a good type album, get some errands done, just kind of be about and just get standard situate within the fare behind it. Map out not terribly as many homies type music within the pitch behind it, but just kind of the tone and just kind of just a straightening kind of day as far as those pitches would kind of happen just within that tone. So You Don't Hear Me Though is very similar to Now I Feel Ya. He's Dead is like a jarring kind of feeling cooked kind of song. He's Dead is like a jarring kind of feeling cooked kind of He's Dead is like a jarring kind of feeling cooked kind of city trade. I'd have to say about this particular one is some snack run music, definitely in typical kind of errands, kind of mellow but wired in the same time. So this is probably one of those type ones that's just like some of these more political type fare that just has a little bit more food for thought type aspects about it. So this one is that, and that's what I was saying about the concept behind it. It's actually the fact that Scarface is not as much full band. It's kind of similar to like Rage Against the Machine and 90s Tupac or early 90s Tupac within those pitches, as far as just being able to say and stuff that you look after it. It does kind of have more like there's not. I mean, there like Scarface does denote smoking on this product. He does denote getting like some 40-ounce type fare within some of those relative type aspects. But this has more content type fare like Ice Cube, Cypress Hill, Tupac, some of those type folks, Rage Against the Machine, some of those type aspects behind. So it's just kind of within the fare behind it. But yeah, I do find myself more liking, not to say full bound, it's not to say like I mean, this album's getting a 9 out of 10 as far as those pitch can have, but within the conduct of just being able to say that the horrorcore Scarface definitely works pretty heavily good, and it's the same concept with like the more kind of southern fried type Scarface. So this is just kind of one that's just a little bit more sociable within the aspect, which is strange because Scarface does not typically, he's usually kind of a more quiet as kept type dude within the pitch, just kind of keeps, you know, within a relative kind of seldom type aspect. Was just kind of the tone as far as saying this is just a little bit more bravado this time. Not to say bravado in terms like a bad way, but just the pitch just has a little bit more chat. It's just more of a chatty type project. But yeah, I think there's just some ones on here. So just within the tones, this album gets a 9 out of 10. Just being able to say this album does have a pretty good balance. Do you like the concept as far as like the pitch of just getting towards some of these smoking type songs, pitches like that? Some of the sleepy ones like Let Me Roll, and some of these sleepy type ones like Let Me Roll and He's Dead and Letting Them Know, some of those type of pitches. Some of the more golden eye type ones like Let Me Roll, Letting Them Know, and He's Dead, some of those type pitches. And then like the city pushes songs like The Wall, Come and Ag, and Dying with Your Boots On, and Still That Ag, and some of those type pitches. So it's just good concepts and day life just within the pitch behind it, but also like some 4 o'clock p.m., 5 o'clock p.m., 6 o'clock p.m. smoke is just within the fares behind it. So it just kind of goes in between just like typical kind of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday type commerce, just between probably like the hours of like noon to about 6:37 within those pitches I just said. So it's good type tones for that, but it's just kind of the concept that is just different from Scarface. It's just kind of the concept that it's not the normal push as to what Scarface was kind of about. It makes me question how his 91 album kind of was within the pitch, but Scarface just has a little bit more horror type fare within him. He kind of is a little bit more laid back on some of these other type projects, but it's just kind of within the composition of this is a little bit more wired project. So just within the tone. With the social score, I'll probably say that's actually kind of tricky, just because the concept that it is out and about, just having more things as far as just like the push of being places and going out and about. But in terms of like songs for your homies, in terms of something collective, like a song like Hand of the Dead Body from like the 94 album or some of those type of pitches, or Mind Playing Tricks on Me, some of those type ones, it kind of feels like this album may be light on that. So I just would have to say I'll probably give the social score of this album like an 8.5. It did go gold, some of that type fare, and it does have some city hop type ones, but it's just kind of the concept that the smokish songs are good within the pitch, but the political type fare of it just keeps things real, to just stay 10 toes down within a relative type aspect, and it has to stay just within the tone. So it's just kind of within the fare of that, but that's just kind of the pitch behind it. So 8.5 social. So in terms of the future, like the unfortunate thing is Scarface has retired as far as those pitches can happen. He last put out an album in 2017, which was like a bonus package to his 2015 album, which was when he retired as far as those fares can happen. I still do have some more Scarface albums to get to within some of those type fares, so we'll definitely get to some of these. But despite, I mean, I've complained about this project quite a bit. It's a lot. I've kind of talked about this within the tone behind it, but it is a 9 out of 10. Definitely a good relative sophomore. This is not a sophomore slump, but something to say within that. You just have to pay attention to the fact it's the just a different taste of Scarface as far as those pitches can have, and then just on top of that, it's just the social vibe of it is just not as electrifying. It's just not as electrifyingly high. In addition to the fact that it's kind of a retro album from like the early '90s, back in the boom bap and golden era hip hop.